Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to English Storytime with Mark. I'm Mark. Today we are going to be reading the classic fable Hansel and Gretel, which many of you may be familiar with the plot line already, but you may not have heard the story in its entirety, and certainly not written into modern English because it's probably hundreds of years old. So let's jump into this. Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, near the edge of a dark forest, there lived a poor woodcutter with his two children, Hansel and Gretel, and his new wife. Their real mother had died many years ago. The stepmother didn't care much for the children and only thought about how much food they ate. One night, while the children were asleep, the stepmother whispered to the woodcutter, "We don't have enough to feed them anymore. Tomorrow we'll take them deep into the forest and leave them there. That way we'll have more food for ourselves." "No," said the man. "I can't leave my children in the forest like that. They would die." "If you don't, we'll all starve," she hissed. "We have no choice." Hansel, who had been lying awake, heard everything. He waited until the house was quiet, then crept outside. The moonlight made the small white stones in the yard shine. He filled his pockets with them and tiptoed back to bed. The next morning, the stepmother gave them a small piece of bread each. "That's all you get," she said. "Make it last." Then they all walked into the forest. The father looked sad and didn't say much. As they walked, Hansel dropped the white stones behind him one by one. When they reached the middle of the forest, the parents built a fire. "Stay here," said the stepmother. "We'll be back soon." But they didn't return. Hansel and Gretel waited until nightfall. When the moon rose, the stones sparkled like breadcrumbs. Hansel smiled. "Come on, Gretel," he said. "I left a trail." The children followed the stones all the way back home. Their father was surprised and happy to see them again, but the stepmother was angry. A few nights later, she locked the door so Hansel couldn't gather stones. The next morning, she gave them even less bread and led them even deeper into the forest. This time, Hansel broke the bread into crumbs and dropped them as they walked. Again, they were left by the fire and told to wait. But when night came and they tried to follow the breadcrumbs, they were gone. The birds had eaten every piece. "We're lost," said Gretel, trembling. "What do we do now?" "We'll keep walking," said Hansel. "Someone must live around here." For 3 days, they wandered through the forest. They were tired and hungry. Then, just as they were about to give up, they saw a strange house in a clearing. It was made of gingerbread and candy. The roof was chocolate. The windows were clear sugar. Fences made of candy canes surrounded it. "Is this real?" Gretel asked. Hansel ran to the wall and broke off a piece of chocolate. "It's real." They began to eat hungrily, bits of candy, cake, and cookies. Suddenly the door creaked open. An old woman stepped out. She had wild white hair and a twisted smile. "Oh, my dear children," she said sweetly, "you must be starving. Come in, come in. I have more food inside." Hansel and Gretel looked at each other. They were too tired and hungry to say no. Inside the house, there were plates of warm bread, bowls of stew, and jugs of milk. The old woman smiled as they ate. But as soon as they finished their meal, everything changed. The woman grabbed Hansel and shoved him into a cage. "He's too skinny," she muttered. "I'll fatten him up first." Then she pointed a long, bony finger at Gretel. You, clean the house and help me cook. If you don't, I'll put you in the oven next. Gretel was terrified, but she nodded and did as she was told. Every day, the witch gave Hansel more food. Every morning, she said, "Stick out your finger so I can see if you're fat enough." But Hansel was clever. He held out a thin chicken bone instead. The witch, who had bad eyesight, felt the bone and frowned. "Still too skinny," she said. Weeks passed. Gretel washed dishes, cleaned floors, and cried at night. One morning the witch had enough. "Skinny or not, I'm hungry," she shouted. "I'll eat him tomorrow." She ordered Gretel to heat the oven. "When it's ready, I'll bake the boy. But first, check if it's hot enough." Gretel knew this was her chance. She looked at the oven and said, "I don't know how. How do I check it?" "Stupid girl," the witch snapped. "Like this." She bent down and stuck her head inside the oven to show her. In one quick move, Gretel pushed her in and slammed the door shut. The witch screamed and banged on the oven door, but it was no use. Soon, everything was silent. Gretel ran to Hansel's cage and unlocked it with the witch's key. "She's gone," Gretel said, tears in her eyes. Hansel hugged his sister. "You saved us." They searched the witch's house and found a chest full of gold coins and jewels. "Let's take these," Hansel said. "We can use them to help Dad." They filled their pockets and left the candy house behind. It took them many days to find the way home. They crossed rivers, climbed hills, and followed paths until one day they saw their father's cottage. He was sitting outside, looking thin and sad. "Dad!" cried Hansel. He ran to them and hugged them both tightly. "I thought I'd lost you forever." Their stepmother was gone. She had left months ago. Now it was just the three of them. Hansel poured the gold into his father's hands. "We'll never go hungry again." And they never did. From that day on, they lived in peace, with full bellies and warm beds, far from the dark forest and the witch's house. So that was Hansel and Gretel, a classic story with the theme of a wicked stepmother, which we see often in these kind of fairy tales. I guess stepmothers have a bad reputation, whether it's deserved or not. I hope you enjoyed this story and you're as looking forward to the next one as I am. I hope I see you next time. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.